Hello, we'll try this again. Welcome to this taste challenge, late morning taste challenge. I was doing the taste challenge for these two, and then the feed went dead. Eric Fraunfelter Thomas Metal 75 said I needed to contact my internet service provider. I don't think that's it. I noticed that this started cropping up about at least once a week after they built that 5G tower. You say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm not really a conspiracy theorist. But I mean, I have enough sense to know that before that 5G tower went into usage, I never had the internet dropping off all of a sudden. And now it does from time to time. Now, if I restart the computer, it comes right back. I was doing this. I think they're sending out transmissions that knocks things offline. I really believe that. It used to mess with my video screen. Like it would just get all kind of static all of a sudden. It would inexplicably start and inexplicably go away. So whatever the case, I can't control that. I think if I go buy a new system, it'll still do it. I have a product from 1939 called Crown Royal. Apparently, it's always been 80 proof, so it's not one that they watered down. It's always been 80 proof. It was introduced in 1939 by the first owner, Seagram's, as Seagram's Crown Royal in honor of the royal visit of King George VI and his wife, Queen Elizabeth, to Canada. King George VI was the king in Canada from 1936 to 1952. And his daughter has been the queen since 52, Queen of Canada. They changed the name. Instead of the Queen in Canada, she became the Queen of Canada, which was trying to make Canada a more independent country. But anyway, this whiskey has had two owners. They've had two reigns during its lifespan, George VI of the House of Windsor and Elizabeth II of the House of Windsor, Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, really, and two corporate ownership. Seagram's from 1939 to 2000, the year 2000. And then that company went bankrupt, out of business, shut down in the year 2000. And the Crown Royal assets and distillery were bought by Diageo, which is Guinness. You say Guinness, that's a beer company. They make Guinness Stout and Foreign Extra Stout and Draft Stout. That's right. But Guinness got so big that they renamed themselves Grand Metropolitan Guinness, and then they just renamed the whole company Diageo. And they bought Johnny Walker, Scotch whiskey. They bought Crown Royal. They bought George Dickel in America. They're huge. They're one of the biggest liquor companies in the world. So I bought this big handle bottle at Winn-Dixie about 2 years ago for $44.95. $44.95, which would translate to less than $20, about $19 and something for a $7.50. But you're not going to find it for that. If you get a $7.50, you're going to find it for about $22.99 or more. So you're looking at $23. Let's say $23 to $25 per bottle. All right. The most popular Canadian whiskey in the world, no age statement, has two owners. And if you look at the website, this is when I got knocked off the air. It says our process. In America, it would be process. In the USA of America, but in Canada, it's process. The process of making the finest, smoothest Canadian whiskey starts with the finest Canadian ingredients. Roughly 80% of our grain, rye, corn, and barley. So they're giving you a mash bill, at least in the sense of what they're including. Rye whiskey, number one, corn and barley. They're not mentioning wheat. Is sourced from Manitoba and surrounding provinces. Resilient natural ingredients that were born to weather the challenging conditions where sub-zero temperatures are the norm. So cold weather grains. 5 different recipes, or in quotes, parentheses, mash bills. 5 different mash bills and 12 distillation columns produce the individual whiskeys that comprise our blends, which are then aged for varying periods of time in either new or reused charred oak barrels. So they use a new charred oak and reused charred oak barrels. Our maturing barrels experience extreme temperature swings, the wood's expansion and contraction slowly adding to the development. developing character. Once the whiskeys have been aged to our blender's satisfaction, they are meticulously blended to create the signature, rich, smooth, and award-winning flavor of Crown Royal. It certainly has won awards, and not some fake awards, but real awards. There's the corn in the photo being poured into the vat, and that. And then they're showing the distillery, our home. 1.5 million barrels of delicious whiskey that sit patiently waiting to be shared with the world. So they're claiming they have 1.5 million barrels. The distillery employs roughly 76 people. Now, how can 76 different people produce this massive volume for the whole world? You know why? Because they're using automation, computers, machinery. It's a mass production product. It's not a craft blend. Distill, blend, mature. Distill, mature, and blend and run Crown Royals 24 hours a day, 7 days a week operation. So they're claiming they're running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then there's all this enviro consciousness stuff, which I'm not going to read. And then they somewhere said on their website, I can't find it, they use 50 different whiskeys. Well, anyway. All right. I already poured them before we lost connection. So here's the competitor, Barrister's Crown Royal, $9.99 a bottle, $22.99 a bottle. So so is it going to be $13 better? This is the key question. But I'm going to give you the answer before I do the review. My answer is no, it's not going to be $13 better. I do not believe, I'm not betting, it's not a wager, but my bet is that Crown Royal is not going to be $13 better per bottle. Could I be wrong? Well, of course I could be wrong. But I don't think I will be. Now, one is a little darker than the other. I don't know which one is which because I lost track talking, and that's a good thing. There's too much in here, but I'll have to deal with that. And I regret that because I'm trying to be very careful saving them for future stage challenges. But sometimes you pour it and it doesn't come out right. Daniel Wells says Crown Royal for the win. You would assume that. But I'm not assuming that. I'm saying, this is my prediction. I could be wrong. Burley Sullivan says, my hypothesis is here's the hypothesis, if I pour Crown Royal and Barrister's Canadian Gold in 2 glasses of the same size and volume, which would make sense, at the same temperature, room temperature, Diageo glasses, and taste them in a blind taste challenge, knowing neither of which is which, then, because remember, a hypothesis is always an if and then. If I do something, then this will happen. It's an educated guess. Then we will find out that the Crown Royal will not have an appreciably better aroma and flavor in a subjective evaluation, because it is subjective. You're giving your opinion of what you think. But on the other hand, we try to be as objective as we can, meaning what? We're just looking at the facts, ma'am, without personal bias. I have no axe to grind against either company. On the other hand, I have no favorable inclination to support either company. So I'm like Switzerland. I'm neutral. I'm just not taking sides. I don't really care. So here we go. All right. That smells like grain whiskey with a little bit. It's funny when you read the website for Crown Royal, they got so many descriptors. It's like, oh, it's so elaborate. But yet most people are buying it and mixing it with Coca-Cola. Drinking it with Coca-Cola. You know, they're not really exemplifying the complex character of it. The Swiss weren't rooting for Germans. No. No, Burley, the Swiss were rooting for Switzerland. Let them all fight. Let them go. Let them go. Another Quaalude. They're going to love me in the morning. So this smells kind of like what the U.S. government would describe on their website, the Tax and Trade TT&B website. The aroma and flavor generally associated with whiskey. That's like literally their legal definition of Canadian whiskey. The product will have the aroma and flavor generally associated with whiskey. All right. How do you quantify that, right? But if you told somebody, oh, hey, I've got this Canadian whiskey, you want to smell it and taste it? And they might say, oh, yeah, I never tried Canadian whiskey, you know. I don't know what it smells and tastes like. You could say, well, try this. This is the quintessential Canadian whiskey aroma and smell. And then, aroma and taste. And they might try it and say, oh, yeah, I like it. Joe Biden's dentist says, I smell revolution in the air. I smell counter-revolution. People say, because you are a traditional Democrat. You are a bourbon. All right. Does that smell bad? No, it smells fine. Smells like just standard whiskey. Nothing unusual or aberrant or out of the ordinary. Just like if somebody said, what does whiskey smell like? You would give them that and they would smell it and say, oh, okay. Cuba. Yeah. Viva Cuba. Liberty. All right. Well, it's kind of a long nose of grain whiskey type thing. Some wood. There's definitely oak. Now, if you look at the Crown Royal website, they're telling you we use new charred oak barrels and a combination in combination with old used barrels. So they're making like bourbon product and mixing it with like blended whiskey product, and they're using rye whiskey, they're using wheat whiskey, they're using corn whiskey, obviously. They didn't say anything about barley whiskey. Modern day Jacobins are afoot. Well, Jacobins are like everybody else. They're mortal, you know what I mean? All right, they're not immortal. They may think they are, but they're like the hare in the tortoise and the hare. They're in such a rush. You see, they're running around. They might run into a guillotine for all we know. I like it. There's a little nut oil, like pecan oil with this. You say, which one is it? I don't know. That's why I'm doing the smell test first. Now this one in my left hand might be a little more a little smoother in the nose, a little more, what you say, cleaner. But it's close. Now you think $13? Oh, there's going to be a $13 difference. No. Now, what's the ratio of Crown Royal television advertisements to Canadian Gold? Well, it would be an infinity to 0. Because you will see Crown Royal television advertisements, which I saw about 3 days ago. And you will never see Canadian Gold television advertisements, okay? Now you might say, well, I was watching an advertisement for Food Lion in Virginia, and they said this week only, Canadian Gold for $7.99 about, okay, well, you might see it for that. A third-party website. U.S. military trained Haitian assassin suspects as Burley. Oh, well, I don't know about all that. Why, oh, why would the U.S. government want to get involved in Haiti? You say, well, they're trying to control the world. Haiti's part of the world, ain't it? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. All right. This one has more fermented grain. It's more yeast fermented product. It's more like it's in the pan and it's gurgling. You know what I mean? It's developing. It smells more like a kitchen, a bakery, more pecan oil. Well, at this point, I really don't know. I got the Canadian Gold wrong earlier this morning when I did Dawn Busters. I got it incorrect. I went up against the Windsor Canadian, which I finished off, and I couldn't tell them apart. Let's go with the taste challenge. Cheers, everybody. Well, tastes pretty dang good. There's a lot of bourbon barrel in this. You know, that vanilla, oaky, fermented, sour mash type thing that you can't place. I couldn't say it's really sour mash bourbon, but that's a rich item. Has a lot of character. Hey, Jay, says Bryce Regal. Hello, Bryce Regal. All right, so that's pretty good. If I was looking to drink Canadian whiskey, that would be a pick. That would be a pick for me. Well, let's go over here. All right. Okay. This is interesting. It's pleasant. It is good. It has some certain kind of nut oil character. But there's a somewhat odd character to it also. An odd aspect. And this will sound crazy and bizarre, but I can relate it to Andes, A-N-D-E-S, after dinner mints. You know, the little rectangular dinner mints with the green middle and the brown top and bottom side. Chocolate with mint inside. Probably not totally natural, but dang good nonetheless. Got that little waxy mouthfeel, those Andes mints. This does have that. Now, you might say it's a predominance of rye. I would go along with that. Saw Genesee beer yesterday for the first time in decades, says JBD. The beer, not the cream ale, Genesee beer. Yeah, first tried that in 1997 on U.S. Highway 11 northbound in Hot Bottom, Pennsylvania, at a roadside tavern and restaurant. It was delightful with that baked chicken with cracked black pepper and the I think it was green beans and mashed potatoes and gravy. $15.99 for a 30-pack. That's an incredible price. It's weird how random beers show up while others disappear. There's no doubt about that. I don't know where you live. I can't remember everybody, but I did find a strange Goose Island IPA on the road back from New Jersey and New York City. It was called Tropical Beer Hug. I gave it a B. It was an interesting product, and I think if I reviewed it repeatedly, I would go up in the score, but I don't have but one. I only had one 19.2 ounce can. And I drank it all, so you say, oh, that's why you seem done out. You seem kind of hyperbolic or trans-dimensional or whatever. Well, I mean, you know, it's 19.2%. It's 9.9% alcohol. What do you expect? But 45 IBUs. But that was an interesting product. I didn't love it. Didn't pay too much for it. It was a strange looking label, and it was strange in a sense that it was Goose Island, meaning InBev, Anheuser-Busch InBev, and it was a shrink wrap label. You usually see that with craft beers who don't have a lot of money. You know, with Anheuser-Busch, you get the painted on label, painted infused aluminum. So I said, it's really weird. But I don't think I'll drive back to Johnson City. Johnson City, is it? Or Johnsonville? Whatever that town is in Eastern Kentucky, where the University of Eastern ETSU is located, Eastern Tennessee State University is located. You know what I'm talking about. Interstate Highway 40, which runs from California to the Atlantic Ocean, and US 70 is the old highway that went across. So if you get on 40, Interstate 40, you'll see 70 coming across off and on the whole trip. 70 used to run from California to the East Coast. It still does, really, but they renamed the numbers on some of the states. Once you get when you get to Arizona is when they started renaming it. It's like California Highways something, but it's the same road. But anyway, I found that beer there, and I said, "Ooh, tropical beer hug." I said, "Oh, I'll buy it. If it's not any good, I haven't lost anything. But if it's good, I've gained some." Well, it wasn't really that good, but I'm glad I bought it, and now I regret that I didn't buy 2 cans, because we're talking about chump change, really. And so it was just stupid. I should have bought two tall cans, and I'll let my friend David do a review and see what he thought. The gas was expensive once you got in Virginia, well, Northern Virginia at least. Pennsylvania, Maryland. Oh, I'm sorry, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York was outrageous, totally off the grid. Insulting prices, but anyway, that's your national socialism, state socialism, local socialism. All right, this is going to be tough. I'm sorry I got knocked off the air earlier, but some weird things going on. I will say this. There is a very noticeable bourbon barrel flavor here. There's no denying that. I mean, I could say, oh, I'm going to attack Crown Royal. I got some kind of axe to grind with them. But still, there's a very clear and present flavor of savory, juicy, whiskey-infused bourbon barrel. There's no getting around that. I mean, I don't really understand the idea that people love bourbon and hate Crown Royal, because there's a lot of crossover there. A lot of crossover. Is it a totality? Is it a totality, a complete crossover? Obviously, it's not. But there is a crossover. All right, let's go over here. All right, now see here, you don't really get the bourbon barrel. Here you get more of that strange pecan oil or walnut oil, or even, I dare say, almond oil. There is a rye note. I guess the body of both of these is medium. The finishes moderately long. Like they linger around, maybe too long, like an unwelcome guest who just wants to stay that one extra night. But they aren't, oh, they're not odorous. They're not totally offensive. You understand. But then they pack up and get in the station wagon and leave, or the minivan, and you say, good grief, I'm glad they left. But anyway, so they have that going. My neighbor always drinks Canadian Gold, Michael Hill says. Really? Wow. Now, what state are you in again? Where your neighbor drinks Canadian Gold? What state? Because I've seen it in Louisiana. I never saw it in Louisiana until Total Wine opened in June of 2020. Never saw it. But it showed up. There they go. Crown Royal. Wow. Martin Wine Cell. Oh, man. 9.9. That. Oh, why did I drink that ale? Total Wine and More has it for $9.99, the 750, and about like $16.99 for the 1,750. But I'd never seen it before that, and it was a strange label, like a little bit of a different label. It looked like old, like people say, old school. That's an old school label, and I thought it is really. It's like something from 1962, which I'm not opposed to before I was born. But I bought it, $9.99 for. I said, I'll buy it. Well, as it turns out, that was a great deal because it was better than you would expect for $9.99. Now, can you buy some products for $9.99 that are much worse? Oh, yes, that happens, but it really isn't as common as you'd think. You'd think, oh, it's all the time. They're always worse. No, they're not really always worse. They're usually not worse. But you say you're stalling. You're stalling. I'm not exactly stalling, but I'm being careful because I am having a little trouble here. I'll tell you what. I'm really going to back this up, and it's not because I had the 9.9%, 19.2 ounce, can of the tropical beer hug. It's not that. I really can taste it. There's a strong bourbon barrel component here, and I really believe if you gave this to a person in a blind thing, and you said, "Oh, you want to drink some bourbon?" Just like playing along with them. Hey, you want to drink some bourbon? And they tasted that, they would say, "Oh yeah, that's a really good bourbon. Who makes it?" Then you could say, "I got him, got him, got him, ha ha ha, got him. It's Crown Royal." And then they would have to reevaluate their purpose in life, their role in life, their interaction with mankind. I don't know how you're supposed to say it in politically correct terms, but they would have to reassess their raison d'etre. So I think that could happen. Guests like fish begin to smell after 3 days. Benjamin Franklin. I remember that quote. I remember another not famous quote from him was about being humble. Benjamin Franklin said he had a lot of weaknesses in his life. He was able to overcome all these personality defects. He said, "I learned to overcome every personality defect except for one thing." He said, "I was never quite able to get around being humble." He said, "because I was very prideful and stuck up in a way and immodest." Like Benjamin Franklin said, I could never overcome being immodest. Like I knew I was smarter than everybody, most everybody I talked to. And but he said, "I worked on that so hard." He was a Freemason, so he probably was doing a lot of craft. I'm talking about lodge-based learning the craft. I don't know if he was York Rite or Scottish Rite, probably York Rite. But he said, just from his demeanor, he seemed to have a York Rite way of walking across a room. But he said, I finally learned how to be humble. I learned to be humble. And instead of saying, you ought to do this, you ought to do that, you should consider this, you should consider that. Benjamin Franklin said, I learned to rephrase things as a question, sort of like the kings and queens of England up until today, when they meet with the prime minister. You know, in the old days, 1500s, early 1600s, up until 1688, they would say, you will do this, you will do that, you must do this, and you must do that. They're ministers. But then in 1689, they adopted a more calculated way of dealing with the government. And they say, like Benjamin Franklin, he would begin to phrase everything as a question. In other words, do you think that's a good idea? Or do you suppose that is a good way of handling it? Or, well, I had this idea about this policy, blah, 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 comma. And do you think my idea is acceptable or a good way of carrying it out? And he began to do that, phrase everything in a question. And so Benjamin Franklin said, I was so happy that I learned to be a humble person, and I was proud of that. I was so happy to become a humble person. I was extremely proud of that fact. And I think Benjamin Franklin wanted to put billboards all across the colonies and the new states saying, I'm a humble man. I'm a humble man, and I'm proud of that. And I want everybody to know it. My neighbor drinks it in Canada. Oh, you live in Canada? Wait, this is important. So you're saying you have a neighbor who lives in Canada and he drinks it in Canada, Canadian Gold. That's like they asked you to defend Oswald. That's pretty important, Dean. I found Hurricane for $1.29 with tax used to get them at other store for $1.30. I think smart mackerel. Hurricane for $1.29. I'm assuming you're talking about a 25-ounce can. And I assume you're talking about the 6% Hurricane. Yeah, it's a great deal. You must have been a hell of a teacher, Ron, says Joe Biden's dentures. I don't know if I was a hell of a teacher, honestly, but I just was enthusiastic about the topic. And like one of my students told me one time, he raised his hand and I said, yeah. He said, you love talking about this, huh? I said, yeah, and I get paid. But I used to tell the students, I say, look, when you take the state end of course exam, because they went to end of course exams, where at the end of the course, you had to take an exam to prove that you had minimum knowledge. I told the students, I said, you will score better than anyone else in this school. And I used to tell the students that, I said, I will take any of you guys, well, maybe not the D students, you know, wasn't too many of those. And I will put you up against any other class and you will destroy them. And I never had anyone, teacher or student, take me up on that challenge. Just saying. History always was my favorite class, says Michael. 8.1%. Oh, the high gravity. Oh, well. I have a lot of experience with hurricane high gravity. It's actually 8.2%, right? 8.2%. Oh, you're right. 8.1. Sorry, I was thinking about. I was thinking about something else. 8.2. This is the old can. 8.2%. Okay. 8.1. Yeah, I would be very hesitant, reticent to drink too many of those. If you drink one can in an evening after work, that'd be okay. If you drink two, when you lay down to sleep, you probably go straight to sleep. If you drink three, you'd be making a disastrous life decision. So, no, never do it. I used to buy 12 packs of that for $3.99 a 12 pack. True story. Until Hurricane Katrina hit, then the price escalated to some outrageous price. But even before the hurricane hit, I stopped drinking it because I said, I do like it. It's $3.99 a 12 pack. This is a true story. 16 years ago. I said, but it's a little chewy, like you're eating the beer more than drinking it. So I said, no, I think I'm going to stop drinking it. And then after Katrina, then it, of course, went to $5.99 a 12 pack, then $6.99 a 12 pack. And now you can buy it at Zupardo's. I'll get that call later. I should put it on mute, right? But you can get it at Zupardo's for $9.99 a 12 pack. Is that a good deal? It's not a good deal. I'm gonna kill you. It's not a good deal, but it's a good deal these days. Is it a quality product? It's a very quality product. It's a high gravity lager. It's a Imperial Adjunct Helles Doppelbock. But I never buy it. It's too strong. I can get it at Walmart. I can get it at Circle K. I can get it at Racetrack. It's a primo product. It's good, but I don't buy it. It's too strong. Liquid energy. Yeah, liquid energy. I don't know about energy, maybe liquid inebriation. But anyway, all right. Let's get down to this. I don't know what that is in my left hand, but it's extremely high quality. It's like pinpoint accurate. It's so woody, charred oak. It's got to be Crown Royal. It's really good. It's like really good. Which fascinates me that these Crown Royal haters, these hating haters who hate, you can steal that quote. These hating haters who hate will get on the internet 29 hours a day talking about how they hate Crown Royal. I'm like, really? I understand it's not the greatest thing in the world. It's pretty like mass produced. And I get that because like I used to buy Zebra gum in 1972. Well, I should say my mama used to buy it. The chocolate stripe, I'm talking about the fruit stripe gum, the Zebra, but they used to make chocolate. Totally artificial. But when you're 3 years old, you love it. But come on, man. No, this doesn't really have that charred oak. This has more like sugar. And really at this point, I can see that Marsala. I wanted to say Marsala. I don't think it's Marsala. I think it's like some kind of cocktail sherry, or as the U.S. government calls it, blending sherry. It's something like that. Yes. It's like a white grape derivative thing. Yes. I think I have it pretty much nailed now. Okay, the charred oak is going to be the Crown Royal. So, do you really benefit from paying $23 versus $9.99? I think you could benefit from paying $23 versus $10, because regardless of the hating haters who hate, and they're fanatics, they're crazy, they're going mad, who, like I said, spend 29 hours a day talking about Crown Royal. Well, if Crown Royal is that bad, don't drink it. Why do you have to spend hours a day informing everybody that you hate Crown Royal? Just ignore it. If it's that bad, it'll go away, right? But, that's, thus their fear. But, yeah, this has got to be Crown Royal, because there's no way, honestly, there's no way a $9.99 Canadian blended whiskey is going to evidence this pretty profoundly charred oak barrel. It's not going to do that. So I'm saying this is Crown Royal. It is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, enough's enough. I was saying, well, if you balance this and you buy that, and you look at this and you trade off that. Okay. But really, honestly, if there really is a Canadian whiskey, from my past experience, if I've had 10% of the Canadian whiskeys on the market, I've had a lot, but I'm sure it's nothing close to that. From my limited experience, there is no Canadian whiskey that approximates bourbon, straight bourbon, more than Crown Royal. This side of Crown Royal bourbon mash, blender's mash, of course, which was intentionally made to mimic a bourbon. But just Crown Royal on its own is pretty fascinating. So, no, there's no way. It's an impossibility. You could never confuse Crown Royal with Canadian Gold. Now, to be fair, do I think Canadian Gold is trash, garbage, filth, should never be bought, is some sideline issue that should be out of hand ignored? No, I don't believe that. It's probably more of a traditional Canadian blended whiskey than the Crown Royal, in the sense that it's it's got a pretty pronounced rye presentation. So I think that what Crown Royal did, they kind of dialed back the rye, maybe thinking ahead of time that we could appeal to the whole world. And the Canadian Gold is like old school Canadian rye whiskey. It's like menthol. Oh, let's smoke some menthol cigars. It's like that whole old school approach. So it's rye whiskey, pecan oil, walnut oil, which would, in my case, appeal to me, because I like those exotic, peculiarities. A little trouble getting around that, but the modern whiskey drinker probably wouldn't, care for that. But yeah, I'm gonna do like, well, I'm happy that I got it right. So now I'm 1-1. I got it right once, I got it wrong once, which I don't feel bad about, because I didn't have a lot of experience with Canadian Gold. So, and then I went up against a product that wasn't really exactly high on the charts. But yeah, I have to go with this old kind of saying that I've been saying: buy both. If you want to buy Crown Royal, I would say you're never going to go wrong. You'll never go wrong. It's worth it. Buy it. Try it. It's an old standby. It's a macro to the nth degree of macro. It's like Jack Daniels, Johnny Walker Red, Jim Beam. Well, you know that, all your macro whiskey products and all of that. I mean, you know, it's mass production. But if you're open-minded, and a lot of people have a hard time approaching open-minded, but if you're open-minded, it might present some qualities and experiences and experiential voyages that are more interesting than you might have first believed. And I think that if you will be open-minded to consider charred oak barrels, it has that. It does have that. It does have, like they say on the website, some never before used charred oak barrels. And I'll be the first to admit that. Canadian Gold. Well, I mean, what do you expect for $9.99 a bottle? It's going to be obviously a budget product. But, and I think there are many more pros than cons with this product. It's a little rough cut. It's not totally refined and great and regal and the most premier golf courses in America and Europe and Southeast Asia are going to drink it. No, obviously not. But it does have some quality approaches. I guess you say an approach, like you're approaching the bridge, you're approaching the tunnel. It does have some quality notes that will interest the whiskey taster. So, yeah, this has been the third experience with Canadian Gold. I did the solo review, and then I went up against whatever that product was, I can't remember. And then the Crown Royal. And yeah, it's done okay. Has it been exemplary? It hasn't been exemplary, but it certainly hasn't been beat up, desecrated, denigrated, castigated, and otherwise cast out like a rejected entity. No, it's been okay. It's been okay. So, can you find a pretty high quality Canadian blended whiskey for a low price if you search around? Yes, I do believe you can. Will it result in a paradigm shift in your whiskey tasting experiences? No, I don't think it'll do that. Oh yeah, Windsor Canadian, 1880. I knew I would remember that. But it will justify the argument that you can get a pretty good Canadian blended whiskey for a decent price, an extremely decent price. Now, what is coming up next? We'll get it together. No, but too many people practicing practices. In a couple of days, I'm going to do Crown Royal Bourbon Mash / Blender's Mash. Oh, I think that'll be a fascinating product. Now, the Blender's Mash evidences more bourbon-esque qualities because Blender's Mash, previously known as Bourbon Mash, was designed specifically to taste like a bourbon. Well, honestly, it was a bourbon developed in Canada. Now, the people at Diageo, Crown Royal, knew it could not be sold as bourbon. All right. So they never called it bourbon. They said it was a bourbon-style Canadian whiskey. That's pretty much what they said. But then all the bourbon companies, meaning Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, George Dickel, Bolete, Wild Turkey, etc., jumped on the ship and said, "Oh no, it's not a bourbon. It's a marketing deception. They can't do it. They can't do it." So the U.S. government, who had originally approved it under the Obama administration, the U.S. government, who had originally said, "Yeah, you're not claiming to be a bourbon. You're saying you're a bourbon-style Canadian whiskey. Yeah, bourbon mash, no problem." Less than a year later, they said, "Oh no, it's confusing the consumer. You can't call it a bourbon," which actually Diageo never called it a bourbon. They said it was bourbon mash. "Oh no, oh no." So they said, "Oh, well, okay, fine." So they went back and they renamed it Blender's Mash. And I bought a bottle and I saw some bottles at Walmart where they had a tag taped like it, with the adhesive back, where people at the factory had put the sticker on the bottle and pressed it down with their thumbs, where it said, "This is not bourbon whiskey." So they had to call it Blender's Mash. I mean, come on, people. Are you that ignorant? All they did was say, "Here's a Canadian whiskey that we created to mimic a sour mash American bourbon whiskey." And what they should have said, comma, "and otherwise, you would have to have a child's mentality to think this was a bourbon, comma, why don't you go," I mean, I know a run-on sentence, "why don't you go research the Tax and Trade Bureau regulations?" But it was a big uproar, so Crown Royal said, "Okay, it's Blender's Mash." But I went to Mathern's and I found a bottle of bourbon mash. Bourbon mash. Oh, but before I do that, I have to review the Crown Royal Black versus Canadian Gold. Well, that's not going to be much of a taste challenge because Crown Royal Black is 90 proof. It's probably the same, more or less, mash bill as Crown Royal, but it's higher proof. In other words, it's probably not cut as much with tap water. But I'll do it. I'll do it. And then on Sunday, so we'll do Saturday, Crown Royal Black. Not a taste challenge. If you don't watch and I get very few views, I'll understand. Won't mind at all. Won't take issue with it. Then we'll do the Crown Royal Blender's Mash. I would take a little issue with that because I think the Blender's Mash is going to be, while not a totally equal taste challenge, I think it would be interesting against the Canadian Gold. And then on Monday, we got Seagram's VO Gold. Oh. Well, now, Seagram's VO Gold versus Canadian Gold. Well, I think that, not the VO Gold, I got rid of that. The VO, the regular VO from 1911. I think that's going to be a massive battle. That's going to be a war. And I'm very excited about that. And well, the other Sazerac products like James Fox and Caliber and Canadian Limited and Rich and Rare Reserve, well, that's not gonna be too much. They got so much flavoring. But the Royal Canadian will be a challenge. Royal Canadian, yes. That's more of an old style. And I like the way people say they copied from Crown Royal. They copied from Crown Royal. Well, how did they copy from Crown Royal? Because Royal Canadian was introduced in 1934, and Crown Royal didn't come out till 5 years later. So how did they copy? Would they go in a time machine?